The function of the plasma membrane, Chapter 7, Section 7.2. A key property of the plasma membrane is selective permeability, which means the membrane allows some substances to pass through while keeping others out. For example, this fish net allows the water and other substances to pass through, but not the fish. Depending on the size of the holes in the net, some kinds of fish might pass through while others are caught. This diagram illustrates selective permeability of the plasma membrane. The arrows show that substances enter and leave the cell through the plasma membrane. Control of how, when, and how much of these substances enter and leave the cell relies on the structure of the plasma membrane. This diagram shows the structure of a plasma membrane, which is composed of a phospholipid bilayer in which two layers of phospholipids are arranged tail to tail. In the plasma membrane, phospholipids arrange themselves in a way that allows the plasma membrane to exist in a watery environment. The two layers of phospholipid molecules make a sandwich, with the fatty acid tails forming the interior of the plasma membrane and the phospholipid heads facing the watery environment found inside and outside the cell. This bilayer structure is critical for the formation and function of the plasma membrane. The phospholipids are arranged in such a way that polar heads can be closest to the water molecules and the nonpolar tails can be farthest away from the water molecules. Water-soluble substances will not move easily through the plasma membrane because they are stopped by the nonpolar middle. Therefore, the plasma membrane can separate the environment inside the cell from the environment outside the cell. Moving with and among the phospholipids in the plasma membrane are cholesterol, proteins, and carbohydrates. When found on the surface of the plasma membrane, proteins called receptors transport signals to the inside of the cell. Proteins at the inner surface anchor the plasma membrane to the cell's internal support structure, giving the cell its shape. Other proteins span the entire membrane and create tunnels through which certain substances can enter and leave the cell. These transport proteins move needed substances or waste materials through the plasma membrane and therefore contribute to the selective permeability of the plasma membrane. Together, the phospholipids in the bilayer create a sea in which other molecules can float like apples floating in a barrel of water. This sea concept is the basis for the fluid mosaic model of the plasma membrane. The phospholipids can move sideways within the membrane just as apples move around in water. At the same time, other components in the membrane, such as proteins, also move along the phospholipids. Because there are different substances in the plasma membrane, a pattern or mosaic is created on the surface. The components of the plasma membrane are in constant motion, sliding past one another.